All right, in this video, I would like to talk about enterprise risk management, which is a favorite topic. We'll cover it extensively in this YouTube channel. As you know, ERM has generated a massive interest among practitioners and academics alike. But it's also a very flexible concept, and it can be defined in many different ways, and it's also being developed at a very quick pace. So in this video, I would like to go back to some of the core principles of ERM and discuss some of the bedrock tenets that underpin enterprise risk management. And in this presentation, I draw heavily on my book, Empowered Enterprise Risk Management, co-authored with Peter Kapstad. All right, so at the heart of enterprise risk management lie three principles. First of all, it's a board-supervised process for integrated risk management across the enterprise. All right, so we'll talk about these three here, starting with a board-supervised process. So this signals a level of board involvement that was previously not there. The word process is also significant because it tells us that ERM is not so much a strategy or a tactic, it's an ongoing process, right? And so the leadership of the firm is expected to have an important role now in the risk management process, effectively putting us in the realm of corporate governance, and we're looking to find ways to organize risk management and integrate it with the rest of the organization. And compare that to what came before it, you know, when risk management was more perceived of in terms of a technical discipline that you delegated to experts in very technical subfields. Let's say you were building a nuclear plant and you needed risk assessments, and there would be experts for that sort of thing, and that was risk management in those days, whereas now it's embedded in corporate governance. As for the board itself, we can summarize its expected contribution to this process with the term risk oversight. And what's that then? Well, first of all, the board is supposed to make sure that the firm takes its risks seriously and has a risk management process. And that this process is not just window dressing, it's actually meeting certain standards of quality here, so that it's really making some kind of a difference here. Another important role for the board is to challenge the executive team on matters relating to risk, so that they're basically not just taking the manager's word on risk management here. Rather, they are challenging core assumptions. Are we measuring risk the correct way, or are we doing the right things? Asking for evidence that this is really helpful to the organization. So that too can be very constructive, right? That sort of dialogue with the executive team. And it should be remembered here that the board of directors are the representatives of the shareholders. So they basically own the risk return profile of the firm, and they're supposed to look after the best interests of shareholders. And this means it's not only supervising the strategies of the firm, but also the risks that come with these strategies. So indeed, the board can make a very big difference here in terms of the quality of the risk management process by taking an active interest in it. All right, so integrated risk management, this goes back to portfolio theory, which was first developed in the field of financial economics. And the idea is to basically pool different assets into so-called portfolio and utilize the correlations. I mean, these assets or the returns on these assets, I should say rather, are less than perfectly correlated. So there's a risk reducing effect from forming a portfolio of such assets. And enterprise risk management can be understood as a way to transfer these ideas over to the setting of a non-financial firm, because you can look at that as a set of risk exposures that are less than perfectly correlated as well. So we're just applying these principles in a new setting, basically. And this has to be understood against what came before, right? The so-called silo-based approach to risk management. And the word silo here has a negative connotation. It refers to something that operates in isolation and doesn't integrate with the rest. They're trying to optimize a narrow goal here, and this may not be optimal from the point of view of the firm as a whole. So you have efficiency losses. So we're trying to overcome these negative effects from silos on risk management. But it should also be said that these silos exist in the first place because there are benefits of specialization, right? So it's not that silos are only negative. We have to have focus, allow people to focus and specialize, right? So we should always keep that in mind, right? That silos are both good, but potentially they create these negative side effects in terms of poorly executed risk management. So here we are going to illustrate some of these ideas. We have a risk factor here that could be an exchange rate or whatever you prefer to think of here. There are 5 business units, and unit 4 here is exposed to risk factor 1, and it manages this risk exposure according to its own preferences. So it's a so-called silo, and they are doing this without taking into account the exposures that exist in other operating units. So there's a clear lack of coordination here. And what if all the business units do that? Well, then you're adding to costs, obviously. Each of these risk management efforts will create a layer of costs, and they won't be integrated. So if this is represents a positive exposure, meaning that they're selling in a particular currency, and this unit here are buying in that currency, well, from the firm's point of view, obviously, you would like to net those and manage the net exposure. But that kind of coordination fails to happen in this silo approach. Whereas then in integrated risk management, you do in fact incorporate the net exposures. You replace these 5 uncoordinated risk management efforts with one coordinated process. And obviously, when you have more risk factors, the costs will multiply. In this case, if you have 5 different risk factors and 5 business units, you get 25 uncoordinated risk management efforts that are all contributing to costs, right? So again, with enterprise risk management, you're replacing that with one single process that tries to utilize net exposures and correlations. So these would be the 2 core tenets then. First of all, net exposures where possible, and then look at other risk exposures on a net basis as well, and try to assess to what extent these net exposures correlate with each other. So currencies and interest rates, for example, they are strongly correlated. So you could see see whether you can utilize that correlation when you develop your risk management strategy. That would be the idea. I would like to add a third tenet here, which is that in integrated risk management, we're trying to optimize the risk return profile of the firm as a whole. So that again is perfectly consistent with the portfolio of financial assets that we started with, where the idea is to optimize the return of the portfolio for any given level of risk. You're not addressing the risk return characteristics of each of the stocks in the portfolio, let's say. The same thing here, we're interested in the firm as a whole, creating value on that level, and we're not seeking to optimize the risk return profile of different units or something like that. So that's also important to remember here, right? We're looking for the best interest of the firm as a whole. All right, the third and final reference here in this definition is across the enterprise. And that could be understood as, simply throwing out all these various risk management efforts in business units and replacing that with a corporate function that somehow manages all of them. That's not really what we're talking about here. Few would believe that this is what we should do. Instead, the general assumption here is that business units do know best because they are closer to the action, right? And they understand how, the value chain of that part of the business, and therefore it makes sense to have them manage the risks that arise from those activities as well. So full centralization, you should expect that to happen mostly in the market risk category, where the preconditions are such that you can, with some level of success, actually centralize the whole thing and run that from a treasury function or similar. So that's important. So the correct way, or the right way to think about across the enterprise here is instead as follows: that we're expecting that all the business units engage in this process and corporate functions as well. And we do so in a unified way, meaning that the methodology and language is unified across all these entities, right? And risk is assessed and reported in a consistent way. So everybody is doing risk management, and it's orchestrated in a way that sort of makes it possible to compare risk across different parts of the organization and therefore make the right priorities. So that is a better way to think about it, essentially. All right, and what this means is that you have to have something like risk governance in place for this to work, where you basically assign roles and responsibilities in this process so that everyone knows what the expectations are here. And risk owners is a key term here. This is how it's usually worded. You're the risk owner if you're responsible for managing a particular risk, and you therefore have incentives to look after that and do your best to implement sensible risk management. And you're also accountable now because you've been assigned the owner, and it's clear that you have the responsibility, whereas before maybe people would just assume that somebody else would take care of the problem, right? So all right, and all the risks that are identified in this process are then compiled into a so-called risk register in order to be able to communicate this information further up in the corporate hierarchy here. And usually it's visualized using a risk map or similar. So these are the workhorses of enterprise risk management, and what most companies do. It's bread and butter of enterprise risk management as of today, right? And risk register is where you compile then. It's a list of all the known risks that are material, the risks that matter. And you characterize them normally in terms of their probability of happening and the impact if they were to happen. sort of information. You can add more column here with more information as well. There's lots of opportunities to build up a meaningful and informative risk register here. So, and then you express this visually using some heat map or where likelihood and impacts are on the axis. So we've now covered the basics. This is what lies at the core of enterprise risk management. It's board supervised. You're trying to heed the principles of integrated risk management, and it's done across the enterprise in a consistent way by all units and corporate functions. All right, so some of the conclusions would be that, well, ERM has created a whole new path for risk management. It's the new benchmark for how we think about risk management. And it's got to do much more now with the organization and governance of risk management. We're leaving behind the idea that risk management is just a technical discipline that you delegate to somebody. All right, so it should be understood relative the silo-based approach to risk management, in which you have multiple efforts at managing risk in a decentralized and uncoordinated fashion, right? So leading to some of these efficiency losses that we talked about. Whereas then, if you have the board of directors supervising a firm-wide risk management effort, you coordinate these efforts and you allocate roles and responsibilities. So you get more attention on risk management, and you create the right incentives for people to pursue the best risk management strategy for the firm as a whole. All right, so these are some of the takeaways. Please read more in my books here, Corporate Foreign Exchange Risk Management and Empowered Risk Enterprise Risk Management. There's also more information on my website, riskbudgeting.se. And as I say here on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Thank you for listening and have a good day.